of June. It's a lunar observance day. It's the 14th day of the lunar month on a new moon. So these lunar observance days, they have the full moon, which is the 15th day, and the new moons can either fall on the 14th or the 15th days. So these lunar observance days, they're called Wat Marp in Thai, which can be translated either as a monk's day, pra meaning monk, or it can be a noble day. And we see that if we just carry on living our lives like we always had, and the days and the nights they pass by and we don't change in any way, then nothing changes. And we see that in the morning at dawn the sun rises, and then it carries on going up in the sky until it reaches its zenith, and then it starts to fall until sunset. And the world, it spins around on its own axis, and it also orbits around the sun as well, giving us the days, the weeks, the months, the years that pass by. So we can ask ourselves, how many of these do we have left? How many days, how many weeks, how many months, how many years do we have left? If we live to the age of 80, then what's left to our lives? Perhaps we may live to 90 and we get a bit more time, but that's not sure. But no matter what the case, the days and the nights are steadily falling away. They're falling away. So the Buddha taught in his last sermon, his last teaching that he gave, he exhorted the monks to bring heedfulness to completion. And all 84,000 teachings on the Dhamma that the Buddha gave, they all gather together in this point, to not be heedless. To not be heedless in our lives, to not be heedless in our age or our youth. And we see that, for the most part, people think that they'll stay in the world for a long time. But some people, they die in the womb. And some people, they're born, and after just a few days, they pass away. Others die as children, others as youth. And in the present day, you see that there's this pandemic that has spread about. And so some people are dying from that, and others are dying from the means they use to try and protect themselves from that virus. And it's usually the case that in the body there's already some illness there, some sickness, or some part of the body that isn't functioning well. And then we put the vaccine into the body and it has a side effect that can be quite dangerous. Or maybe we come across an accident, we're a part of an accident and we die in that. And so it's really not sure. These lives of ours are not sure. So if we just live our lives day by day, doing what we always had done, the people who aren't generous, then they're just stingy like they were before. The people who don't have morality, they just carry on being immoral. Those who drink alcohol just carry on drinking. Then our minds, they just stay that way. And they fall down into lower states even. They can fall down lower than a human and into an animal form. And that's because we're lacking this sila, Dhamma, this morality, this virtue. So on these lunar observance days, the Buddha taught for us to have this sila, Dhamma. So in the space of 1 month, there are 4 of these lunar observance days. So we could say that there are 4 monks' days, and there's either 26 or 27 lay people days. But if we are firmly intent, then we can keep the 8 precepts on these days. Those people who don't normally keep the 5 precepts, they can determine to keep these on these lunar observance days. And those who already keep those 5 precepts, they can take these 8 precepts on that day. And this is a good way of cultivating and increasing our barami. It's something that's quite difficult to do, to keep these 8 precepts. And it makes our minds grow in value, grow in worth, and grow in nobility. So the sila, it brings us great benefits. And some of those are that our mindfulness and samadhi gets better, that we don't eat dinner, and so the body doesn't have to kind of digest and process that food, and so it feels a lot lighter than it normally does. And this makes meditating easier. It also makes developing samadhi easier as well. But if we don't keep these 8 precepts, and we go off to eat dinner, and during this period of pandemic, it's okay because we usually eat at home. But outside of this pandemic time, people often go to eat at a restaurant, and they have to travel all the way there and then travel all the way back. And that's a big waste of time. But people don't see it in that light. They don't see it as being a waste of time, but rather they just understand that they're enjoying themselves, that they're finding amusement, entertainment, that they have happiness from that. But they don't see that their time is reduced by it. And so people don't think in this way, that when they go off to eat dinner, then their time is less. And they don't think that the days and nights are steadily passing by. When dawn arises, they don't think that one night has passed. I have one night less left to live. That the time that I have in this world is less than it was before. So therefore, we need to be intent to make our actions noble, our actions of body, our actions of speech, our actions of mind, to make these more noble than they were before. Because if we don't change our actions, then we'll just be like we always were. Nothing will change. We may even get worse than we were before. And if we do this, then we can really waste a lot. We can waste a lot of our minds. So the mind attaches to all the things it experiences as being me and mine, and this is due to delusion. It's the deluded thinking of the mind that there is a self, that there is me and things that belong to me. And everything we meet with, it takes it in these terms, in terms of self. And this is the cause for suffering to arise. And so which of the defilements do we abandon first? We put down the sense of self and we try to abandon delusion. We deludedly give rise to all these emotions, all this love and hate and fear and worry. And so we try to put down this delusion, abandon this delusion. And we can do that, but it usually happens little by little. And as we can abandon that, then our hearts become more noble. So people who don't have sila, who don't have good virtue, they don't keep these 5 precepts, and that shows that they're quite deluded. And so we should try to keep those. The people who go out and gamble, that they should try to give that up. The people who take the lives of animals that cause suffering to other beings, they should try to abandon that. Anyone drinks alcohol, then they should try to reduce the amount that they consume. So on these lunar observance days, we keep these 5 precepts. And it's a good way of us reducing our alcohol intake, because if people drink a lot, then that can be very damaging to their health. It can cause a lot of problems to their kidneys, their liver, and their heart. And we all love our own bodies. We want to stay in this world for a long time. But it's delusion that takes us to act in this way, to act in a way that destroys our own bodies. And so we try to keep these 5 precepts. And when we do that, then our faith will grow firm. And this is a way for us to develop our barami and to develop merit as well. That our minds can become happy and bright and light through the merit that we create. So as we carry on practicing like this, then our faith increases, this belief, this inspiration that we have increases. and we'll be more firmly intent on this practice because we see suffering, this noble truth of suffering. And so from that understanding, then we gain this intention to really train our minds, to have mindfulness, to have virtue, to care for our actions of body and speech well. But our hearts have been covered over with delusion for an extremely long time now. But really, the real mind, the genuine mind, there's nothing there. It's brightness, it's light. And it has this knowledge in it, this wisdom to it. And so this mind is a knowing element, an element which receives the sense impressions. And all of these arise and cease. Even the defilements which come up within it, these arise and then they pass. And no matter how much greed we may experience, no matter how strong that may be, it comes and then it goes. But what's important is that from these defilements we then produce karma. And then after this karma, there's the vipaka karma, the results that karma gives us. And so there's this vipaka, and then that then kind of pushes our minds to do the same actions all over again. There's the kilesa, and then karma, and then the results of the karma, and then that gives rise to more kilesa. And then that kilesa kind of coerces the mind to create that same karma all over again. So this is the cycle of kilesa and karma and vipaka karma. And this drags our mind, it pulls it every single day to be stuck in its old habits. And so like the people who drink a lot of alcohol, and that's a habit for them, then when they drink, they develop the craving to drink even more. And gambling is the same. So we should try to put these down and try to develop good karma, good acts. Like those people who offer food to the monks on alms rounds very frequently. This is a good way of reducing and abandoning selfishness. They get up early in the morning and prepare the food, and the weather's very pleasant then. And they get the feeling that with this new day, then their heart is new as well, that there's this freshness to their heart. And then they do this, they do these kind acts, they offer food to the monks, and they feel very happy, their hearts grow full and contented from that. And people create merit in different ways. And some people help to spread the teachings of the Buddha, to help support the Buddhasasana, help others to gain understanding into the Dhamma. And when we do these acts, then the hearts become very full, they become joyful. And when the heart is joyful, then it's like it gets born anew, it becomes new. So this knowing element, it has merit within it, but this merit also arises and ceases. But it arises and ceases along the path to happiness. So we do these frequently, these good acts, and do them more and more frequently than before. And this is good karma that we are producing. And through this our faith grows and grows. And then we'll get to a very important point, which is that we become interested in the Dhamma. We become interested in putting that Dhamma into practice, into developing our minds to be higher and better than they were before. So initially we get this strong feeling and clinging to me and mine. But as we continue to cultivate generosity, then another kind of feeling will arise within the heart. We'll think that even if we get a lot in this world, then what would we want for ourselves? We just want to be generous, to make merit with that, because we see that from that merit our heart fills up with joy, with happiness. Even though we may gain a lot of money, a lot of wealth, we just want to make merit with that in order to bring happiness into our hearts. And we also understand that we don't need to use a lot of money in order to gain that happiness. We can just use a little bit and already our heart fills up with joy. And in doing this shows that we have the quality of a sotapanna. And so we do goodness, we keep these precepts as a normal way of acting and of living. And then we come and think and contemplate and see how all things are changing, all things are unstable. And this body, for instance, is something that we just borrow from the world. And these 4 elements, we just take them from the world. And the mind comes and depends or resides within this body. We have these sense organs which receive the sense data from the world. So when we receive this, then the mind attaches to it and attaches to the world. And this is what causes us to be born again, that we receive these sense impressions from the world and then we cling and we find delight and joy there. So we need to bring up knowledge and we need to study in order to pass this test. Because if we don't pass the test for the subject, if we fail, then we'll have to be born again. And we may be born in a very difficult and torturous place. So if we are to be born again, we should make sure that we're born in a place where we can develop good qualities and we can cultivate wisdom. So training our minds to be firmly established in samadhi is very important because this can give rise to wisdom. And so like how we come and we train ourselves in chanting and meditating and practicing together. And these are all ways of developing wisdom. And this wisdom is an all-around knowing. And we already know what worldly wisdom is like. The wisdom that we have to survive in this world, to make a living and to get through our studies. But we also need to develop wisdom in terms of Buddhism, which is a knowledge within ourselves, a knowledge that arises. So there was an arahant during the time of the Buddha whose memory was quite bad, and he couldn't memorize any of the teachings of the Buddha. But when he cultivated samadhi to a good degree, then he was able to contemplate, and he gained awakening through that. And he became one of the foremost disciples of the Buddha, someone with great parami. And his name was Chulapandaka. So on this lunar observance day, it's a day that we keep sila, Dhamma, that we have this quality of virtue. And so may all of you be firmly intent to practice on this day, to take up either these 5 precepts or the 8 precepts. And for the monks, it's really important to practice a lot, to meditate a lot, because we have this really good opportunity now. And so we should really use it as best we can, to be chanting, to be meditating, to make our minds better, to develop them, to give them more and more value than they had before. So these Wat Marp, these lunar observance days, are noble days. And for the lay people, there are 4 of these days. But for monks, the entire year is filled with these noble days, these Wat Marp, these lunar observance days. And each of these are days which we should use to make our minds noble, to bring them to nobility. Because initially when we ordain, that's just done through conventions. We're just conventional monks. But when we contemplate and we gain understanding in 2 conventions, then the mind realizes liberation, this vimutti. And even though there is this vimutti there, which the mind experiences and knows, this knowing element experiences, that too is not self. Yet everything is empty. All things are empty. But within that emptiness, there are physical things and there are mental things. And so in form, there is emptiness. And within emptiness, there is form. And we can come to understand this and know this clearly. And so we should practice to come to this understanding. And so may all of you develop, cultivate your parami, cultivate merit, cultivate goodness. Because the opportunity that we have now is the best opportunity that we can come by. We have bodies that are functioning, that are healthy. And some people, they die at the age of 20 or 30. that this is possible, this does happen. Others die at 40, others die at 50 or 60, that really life is not sure. So this is a good opportunity now for us to practice. And so we shouldn't neglect it, we shouldn't be heedless. But rather we offer our practice in homage to the Sambuddha, the perfectly self-awakened Buddha. We bring our minds to a state of peacefulness, and then we take that peaceful heart and use it to contemplate the body, seeing it as being unstable, as being stressful and not self, and seeing it as being empty. And here we're able to destroy these wrong views, able to destroy Sakkaya Ditthi, this self-view. And then with that, also there's attachments to rites and rituals and skeptical doubts that gets destroyed as well. And experiencing this is really amazing. And when we can get into deep samadhi, that's amazing as well, bringing the mind into that state. At the beginning, however, it's not like that. When we come to meditate, sometimes the mind can enter samadhi and sometimes not. But when that samadhi stays, when we're able to maintain it, and the mind and the heart are constantly in a light and buoyant state, then it's really amazing. And we'll see that it is possible for us to do that. We can perceive emptiness at that point, and seeing how in the world there's nothing that's me, there's nothing that's mine. There's nothing at all here that belongs to me. That all the material things of this world, they're all unstable, they're all inconstant. The bodies of people, the bodies of animals are all changing. All these things are conventions. We'll feel like we don't want any of them. And we'll know that there's nothing here that we're able to take with us past death. But what we can take is the goodness that we create, and the merit, the parami, the goodness that we develop. And so we should practice like this and make our minds noble. And when we see things in this light, then our faith will increase, we'll gain this understanding. And so as we practice, then our faith increases daily. It gets better and better. But when samadhi, one day samadhi can really grow deep and profound. And then we see the state of arising and ceasing with great clarity as something that we hadn't seen before. And here the mind falls into the flow, the stream of the Dhamma. And it changes like this. So we should try to see the world as it is, that it's like a house that's on fire, that is constantly burning. And when we see it like this, then we'll get the feeling that we don't want to stay around here. We need to find a path out, we need to find an escape route. And because this fire of old age, the fire of sickness, the fire of death, is constantly burning us. And so it's like a house which is caught on fire. And we're in that, then we feel the heat of that fire and we try to find a way out. And if our minds see things in this way, then we'll try to find a route out of suffering. You see that life is not sure. We'll see that it's only the Dhamma that's able to cultivate our minds, to make our minds better, to take us to a better place. And so may all of you be really intent on cultivating your parami. And it's this lunar observance day, so may you all really put effort into this practice, in making our minds firm in faith. And may you all have this sincere intention to practice in this way.